Hi, this is Melissa Taboda. I am the education reporter with the Austin American-Statesman, and I'm joined today with Andrew Mara, who is the education reporter in Palm Beach. And we are going to be talking today about high school rankings. The 2019 U.S. News and World Report came out this week. And so we're just going to be talking about what goes into those high school rankings and maybe what's special about them. So Andrew, do you want to kick off maybe talking about the criteria for the rankings?
Yeah, so the rankings, as I understand it, are based on a few different factors, mostly involving how well the students do at the schools. They also include the sort of course offerings at the school, how many college level classes like advanced placement or international baccalaureate classes. There's some special focus on how poor and minority students do. So a lot of those are mixed together. I think there's 6 different metrics they use, and then they create the composite out of those, and then they rank all the schools around the country.
So Andrew, maybe you can let us know, what do these rankings ultimately mean?
Well, they don't mean a whole lot. It's a good point for bragging rights for the schools that are near the top, because they can tell their parents, they can tell their students, hey, congratulations, we're at the top of this list. So it's sort of a feel-good moment. I don't think it means a whole lot, especially considering in comparison to the universities. Universities, I think, do take this more seriously because it can affect their applicant pool. And there's been claims that it even affects the way that they admit students to try and score higher in the rankings, because so many people do look at those when they're looking at what schools to apply. It's a little bit different, of course, in high school, because you tend to go to the high school closest to you, at least that's near to you. So I don't think it matters a whole lot in the big scheme of things. I don't know that parents necessarily think to look to U.S. News for rankings. There's lots of other places that rank schools, and the states even now will give schools letter grades oftentimes, at least in Florida, certainly they do. So I don't think it matters a whole lot, but it is a nice little marketing boost for the schools that do get named near the top.
Great. So tell me a little bit about the rankings out in Florida, or maybe specifically Palm Beach, and just a little bit about those campuses there.
So there are 2 schools here in Palm Beach County that are always perennially on the top 100. They're called Suncoast High School and Dreyfous School of the Arts, 2 high schools in the West Palm Beach area. They kind of go back and forth. Lately, Suncoast has been the higher of the 2 in its rankings. They are both application-only schools. They're both public schools, but you have to apply to get there. In Suncoast's case, you actually have to have a certain level of GPA in order to get into one of their programs. So they already pre-select for students who tend to be high academic achievers. So it's not hugely surprising that the students who go there then tend to do well on standardized tests. And the schools, of course, do have a lot of college level classes there. They have an international baccalaureate program, a math, science, engineering program, some other computer technology studies there. So it's quite a draw to students from around Palm Beach County. And so, of course, they do tend to do well for that reason. And they actually fell in the rankings this year. Suncoast did. I think it's 88th in the country this year. It was higher the last few years. I think because U.S. News did adjust the way it measures the schools and added some new factors. I imagine there was a lot of movement around the whole country in terms of the rankings.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think they kind of cautioned us to not make hard comparisons from the year before, just because of those rankings, could kind of change, or the criteria in them had kind of changed. So I think you're right about that. Out in Texas, there is, one particular school in the Austin area that always ranks pretty high on the list, and it's the Liberal Arts and Science Academy. And likewise, it also is application based. It is a public school, but it's a magnet school. And you do have to have, essays and GPA and do well on standardized tests, all of that as well. But they have been trying to make that school a little bit more diverse, perhaps add in some more economically disadvantaged students by changing their criteria a little bit in the last couple of years. And they've, budged a tiny bit in that area, bringing in maybe more low-income students. But they're really the only ones in the Austin area that rank in that top 100. There are some really other good schools that ranked very high in Texas that are in Austin, like the all-girls school, the Ann Richards school for young women leaders. And that also is application based as well. And then I found it interesting that there were multiple charter schools that were on, the list, and one that wasn't on the list. One non-charter school that wasn't on the list. It's a complete, comprehensive high school, no application or anything like that, but very highly competitive. Is out in the Eanes School District, and that's Westlake High School. So they did really well. They have a pretty small low-income population at that school. It's very homogeneous, but they did well in the rankings. So any more feedback on what's happening out there?
Well, I've noticed, I think in the past years, some of the top schools have been charter schools. I think in Arizona, there's a chain, there's a school that tends to be number one or near number one at the top. Florida doesn't seem to have that phenomenon as much. It's rare for, I don't know if there's any charter schools in the top of our, of the top state schools here in Florida. They tend to be predominantly magnet schools that select for students who are high achievers already. So it's not surprising. I wonder if U.S. News, if there'll be pressure on them moving forward to reconsider this or consider this factor, because of course schools that select their students based on academic performance will tend to have high academic performance. It almost seems unfair in some ways to compare a general population school to a school that gets to choose who it educates.
Right.
I wonder if that'll be, or at least they'll have a little asterisk next to them in the future at some point.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So I guess we'll be seeing that. So, well, thanks so much for sharing. And I appreciate the time today. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in.
Thanks, Melissa.